Then that Patrick come out here and he says, well, he says, I need a little help from you, Lance. I need you to fix me a tool or something. I can't get these dials. And this is our large dial. It's a giant dial. And this is our little baby dial for our little cross slides and stuff.
I want to disassemble this chuck, and there's two reasons for doing that. I want to see the amount of grease they use on the ball bearings and on the ball bearing guides. But the other thing I want to see is I want to see if the manufacturer, if they grease or oil any of the other components. Because remember, in the instructions they tell you no oil or grease on any other part. Okay, and I really think this is so critical to adequately lubricate your Albrecht chuck. I just can't see myself doing it any other way. The spindle is running right now, and right now I have a 1 millimeter tap.
Hello, and welcome to Shop Adventures 22. I'm Lance, and for the last time I have to say this, that's Patrick back behind the camera. Huh? Why would that be the last time I had to say that? Well, it's effective next week, and he's just so excited about this little move. Patrick's gonna mosey on around from behind that camera and be up here with me, side by side in these openings, from next week on. We were gonna wait a little longer. We were gonna get to the 6-month mark. But I said, that's okay. He's going to come now, so he's so excited about it. You ought to see the joyous look on his face.
I like it back here better.
I'm sure you do. Okay, let's get after these topics, shall we?
Okay.
All right, this week's adventure, we are going to get adventurous, all right. We got the Albrecht chuck science all done here. We actually added an additional little piece to the Albrecht results to our, and that came from a fellow viewer, a super giant YouTube creator. His name is Peter, and he's at Edge Precision, and he had an idea that we could add to our video to make it better, so we did. Patrick will share all that with you. Then I make a special tool for Patrick, a special tool needed to reassemble the Levin lathe accessories. And then I go out with Patrick, and Patrick's going to tap-a-dap-a-do. That's what we're going to do. We get to tap holes in that German tapping machine today, don't we?
Finally.
Ha-ha! All right. In front of me today is a pile of stickers. Recently, and a while back, until, well, there was another picture up after us, and then, of course, Mr. Pete stole the show over there at the YouTube Machinist Group. He's currently featured there. His big mug's up there with his fancy goggles on. Okay, the YouTube Machinist Group, we did have a picture there on their group, and we did win a display for a week of having our, I think it was a micro drill press up there on a Marshall lathe. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Then what we get in exchange for that is they send you a bunch of stickers in the mail. These all came from John, one of the admin. John and Emma are both the ad persons, or admin and women over at the group. And it's a great group. If you haven't been there, you don't have to be a YouTube creator to be a member there. That's the whole idea. People often post their videos there at the same time they post on YouTube, so you're made aware of them. And people do little highlights and stuff and pictures and things like we do pictures because we just love it. And if you ever want to see our pictures, I have to just remind you again, we're over on Instagram. Patrick does put a lot of effort in taking these pictures. They're really neat. And I think that's all I have other than one more little thing. I just want to let you know, in regards to stickers and all these beautiful stickers that come from everywhere, we are producing our sticker now. We're going to wait, and we're about right time, right, Patrick? About 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. That's what we're going to do. So let's get out and do some tapping. Let's see how the hell that Albrecht chuck turns out, and let's see what kind of tool Lance made, shall we? Oh my gosh. See ya. Bye.
Okay, we're in the machine shop, and Lance wants to share a tool he made with you guys in regards to a problem I had in assembling the Levin attachments. Hi, Lance.
Hey, hi. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of neat. You never know what, this is Shop Adventures, so you never know what we're going to run across, but whatever it is, I honestly, we both try our hardest to catch it on film. Well, as you notice in front of me, there's no more Levins. Oh boy, I was so happy to have them out of here. Even if I know what's coming behind it is two Marshalls, I said, the Levins are gone. I kind of feel like I've gotten somewhere here. Then that Patrick come out here and he says, well, I need a little help from you, Lance. I need you to fix me a tool or something. I can't get these dials. And this is our large dial. It's a giant dial. And this is our little baby dial for our little cross slides and stuff, and our micro drill and all those things. Okay.
Okay.
And you see this little spring right here, and I'm going to push it. It's on a piece of car. See, I want you to see. I am applying a boatload of pressure to that. Okay. And we have a friend that used to have a machine shop. He's retired now, and he lives in California. And he was in Burbank where he had his company. He had 10 of these Levin lathe machines set up. So over the time, he had to do what Patrick and I've had to do for a decade. And that's fix these things, just maintain them and do little maintenances once in a while. And he had built this tool, but since he retired and he'd sold us some of his tools, he built us this special, really thin pair of pliers that would allow us on
Can you hold that sideways? I don't... Yeah.
Sorry.
I was only seeing the edge of it.
Oh, I wanted to emphasize the thickness there. And it just opens and closes. And it catches this spring. And it goes for this small one here. So that spring, here, let me just do this. That spring goes around this nice blued part here. And you capture it and you close that and you slip this down and this goes inside. And that's how we put the spring in here. We've done this before. So this one we knew, we do it. The bigger one, you can obviously not use this plier. It won't fit. As you'll see, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, the diameter is a lot bigger.
And I had discussed with Patrick my fear of these steel pliers on these kinds of dials and parts. We were all about this smooth operation of these tools when they're done. We really pride ourselves on it. So he said, look, you're going to have to do something. You can't just take these little springs, squeeze them with your finger, push them down in there. If you try that, you're likely it's going to shoot and ricochet across the room. It's not going to happen because you got to bend it a long ways to get into that circumference. Okay. And they're the little dial that this little buddy turns, just like your little Bridgeport mills and your lathe cross slides and your beds and all those things. That's what these do. Just a little micro version of it. Okay. So I built him two tools. First, I built him one to get him out of my hair. And this isn't broken. It just, it is what it is. This is both, by the way, the product I chose for this kind of operation, it's not on a production job. It is a rare thing we have to do to rebuild these, but we will store it with retired Bill's pliers. So we built this one. I said, well, good, I'll just build him this sandwich thing. I'll saw it in half. That means it'll be a little less. It's a 5/8 diameter hole here, just so you know. And I'll just use this, and what I'm going to do is he's going to get the spring, he's going to put it in here, I was going to drop that dial, and I'm going to push these two together, and he's going to slip it down inside of here, and we're done. This goes inside, that spring's inside, everybody's happy, and we're all over with, okay? Well, that sounds really good on paper. And there's this thing called ergonomics. And this little spring finds any way it can to get out of there, and it slides out every time, so it just wasn't going to happen. So I went outside all frustrated, went back to the drawing board, and I machined him on the CNC tag, our little baby mill. I machined him down this little thin piece to match the thickness of the one that we got from Bill. Pretty close, right in there. And again, this is 6061, super soft. I believe it's smarter because it will not do any scarring here. I don't want any marring, any scratches, such forth. So what this tool allows you to do, and of course, I milled this nice slot in here for him. It allows me to hold it, and it just allows this really nice action with the spring. Once you get the spring in here with this, it allows this action. Let me turn that upside down. You're like, that's okay. It allows this type of action. You see how I'm getting that in the house there? Let me get that on my hand, Pat. See that?
Oh yeah, that's really good.
I'm catching that spring, and it's not got nowhere to go. I favor it over to the other side there where my thumb is, and then it locks that in, and we slip this. With that spring in there, we slip this part down, and the spring's inside, and we are done. And we have to do this a few times, and then that's why the tool can last and be in 6061. So I just wanted to give you that. If I could.
Oh, one thing I want to note.
Uh-oh.
No, it was your good design. With this tool, it required both of us. One person to hold these two pieces and another person to try to put the
That's
you know,
right.
two
I
parts
didn't
together.
help you with this assembly. I
Right.
gave this to you last
When-
night. I built you this yesterday afternoon. I gave this to you last night, and you had it done this morning.
Yeah, and everything's so perfect, the angle and everything, I was able to do it myself really quick. So no, it was definitely a much better tool.
Ooh, even has a nice finish. Okay, one more item, if I may. I'm just going to give you a little heads up. I am in the machine shop. There's a piece of Delrin next to me. This piece of Delrin is 1 foot long and makes exactly 4 pieces to something I'm building. And it stays in the machine shop. It's not going in that cherished little white coat workshop area. It gets to stay in the machine shop. I will be making this into 4 pieces. It has something to do with storage, and I'm going to be building it and it'll be an added clip onto I'm not going to show drilling and sawing it. I think you've seen enough of that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create them, and I'm going to show you what they're going to go on, and that's going to be pretty neat, and that'll just be a little clip within one of our future videos coming up. I don't know, probably the month of February. I just like to give you little things for kind of working on whatever's going on here. This is Shop Adventures, so thank you. I'm glad you took a minute to let me share my little fancy tool with you. See ya.
Thank you, Lance.
All right, we're out in the shop now and to see Patrick with some updates on the Albrecht chuck, I guess. Patrick, how are we doing here?
I think we're doing great because I've been so anxious to get back to these Albrecht chucks. I'm just so curious, as probably as you guys are as well. Just to give you a recap from last week, if you haven't seen last week's video, basically I did a rebuild on this Albrecht chuck. It's a 1/8 inch capacity drill chuck, or 3 millimeter. And what I did was, one of the things I focused on was disassembling it. You know, a lot of people use plates, and again, you could look at our last week's video to see all the details. Because what I did was I didn't want to make the plates, so I just used the 5C collet block, and I was successful and got this apart. So that was great news. So I took it apart. Lance cleaned it. Analyzed all the parts for wear, and condition-wise, this chuck's beautiful. Remember, this belongs to our tapping machine, so it's never held a drill bit. It's only held little tiny taps. So that's why we think there's really little, even though this is really old, we estimate about 35 years, it has very little wear just because it's only been used with little taps. So that's good news. And the jaws, the jaws themselves, no damage at all. So that's great news. So anyway, as per the instructions, I greased it, followed the instructions to a T, where they tell you don't oil or grease any of the other components or the other parts in the front. They only want you to grease the ball bearings in the back and then the guides or the bearing races that the ball bearings run on. And that's what I did. So I did that exactly. But the problem is after I assembled it, I don't like the fill. The fill, if you've used an Albrecht chuck, it has that nice fill with that resistance you would expect. But this one, it's too loose. And I'm just afraid because it's too loose, I'm just afraid that it's not going to grip as well as it should either. And I'll explain that as well. So that's why I pulled a brand spanking new Albrecht chuck, same exact model, and this is brand new in the box, never been used, and it's a pretty recent manufactured chuck. It's not a new old stock, and that's good. And what I want to do today, and which is I'm really curious, is I want to disassemble this chuck, and there's 2 reasons for doing that. I want to see the amount of grease they use on the ball bearings and on the ball bearing guides. But the other thing I want to see is I want to see if the manufacturer, if they grease or oil any of the other components. Because remember, in the instructions, they tell you no oil or grease on any other part. But I want to see, I'm curious to see, if they bend the rules and they really do oil some other components. And that's why I'm feeling the difference. So, and I'm going to share that with you right now. What I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go over to the other table where the vise is. I'm going to disassemble. I want to disassemble this with you. I'm not going to go through all the different tools and parts like I did last week, because you can just look at last week's video if you haven't seen it. So I have everything set up already. We're gonna go over there, and in front of you, we're gonna disassemble this new chuck, because I want you guys to see too how hard this hood, this top portion, how hard it is to remove. I want to see if there's a difference over the years. I'm just curious, if the manufacturer, if they really tighten these really tight, or if they're fairly loose. I'm just here. I want to share everything with you, because if you're curious like me, I want to know all the little details.
We are over here with Patrick at the Vice area with the 5C collet block and the Albrecht chucks. Hey, Patrick.
Hi, guys. Okay, unlike last week, I already have everything set up, because I didn't want to repeat everything, since if you haven't seen this process already, you can view our last week's video. But I wanted to bring you along and share how much effort it's going to take to remove this hood on this brand new Albrecht chuck. Okay, just remember, this is the brand new chuck out of the box, never been used. So I wanted to see how it compares to last week's, where we removed the hood off that 35-year-old chuck I rebuilt. So let's get started, I guess.
Oh. All right, let's see. Oh, there's those fancy pliers, I see.
Okay, I don't know what to expect. Oh, one thing I should mention before I do this. When you remove this hood, like I have it set up right here, you want to make sure that the jaws are out about halfway. So they aren't all the way in, or they aren't all the way out. They're just, you want to be sure they're loose.
A real neutral position.
Yeah, neutral position. So that's important. Okay, and then the other thing is, just a little reminder from last week. When I grip with this wrench, I'm only going to grip on the top half of the knurls, because the bottom half is where the threads are, and I don't want to put pressure on the threads, obviously. So just a couple of things. Okay.
Come on.
Come on.
Squeeze tight now.
Wait, let me see. Okay, that's better. I had them out too close. Okay. Oh my God, this is tight.
What's all that moaning going on over there?
This is already, I could tell you, this is tighter than last week's.
Don't spin then.
What does it look like?
Huh?
It did turn a little bit.
Nope, it's fine. The jaws aren't spinning. Just the cap. Just the hood.
Great. I could tell you though, this was much more difficult. I'm really surprised, actually. And the reason why I'm surprised, okay, I got the old chuck right here. Okay. And what they say is, they actually say that over time, from using these chucks, the hood gets tighter. So that's really, I would have expected this older one to be much tighter from what people have said on the internet, that this should have been much tighter than the brand new one. But I can tell you, this brand new one right now, it was almost, I have to say, it was almost twice as hard to remove. It took that much more strength. So that was really interesting. So, okay, we're done here. We're gonna end this video here, and what I'm gonna do off camera is I'm gonna remove the hood off my the last week's chuck as well that I rebuilt, and then I'm gonna meet you up at the table we were at. So I'll be back in a little bit.
All right, we are back over at the workbench with Patrick in his ever so famous blue machine shop coat. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, guys. Okay, we're back. And, okay, we have the two Albrecht chucks here. Just real quick, this is the brand new one out of the box. And then this is the one I've rebuilt from last week. Okay, both hoods are loose, so I can take both of them apart. But I want to put this one out of the way for now, because this is the guy I want to take apart in front of you and investigate it. Okay, and just a reminder, I like to just give reminders just in case, it's a good reminder for me too, not to make any mistakes. Okay, we want to be sure when we remove the hood that the hood's facing up. Because remember, the ball bearing, there's 25 ball bearings that are inside the body, and they're loose. So if I were to disassemble with the hood down, all the balls are going to drop. and likely go on the floor and we're going to lose them. So just want to add that. So let's go ahead and take this apart. Okay, let's see what we have. Just take a quick look real quick. Well, I tell you, it certainly doesn't look dry. Let's see if you can get it. It's okay if you can't get a good shot.
I think I got it. I think I can, yeah, get right there. Okay, yeah, it's awful shiny in there, say.
Yeah. Okay, we'll revisit that. Okay, oh, look at that. I just want to pinpoint. Look at all that grease right there. Okay, remember, I just want to remind people, okay, remember, the Albrecht instructions on their website for rebuilding these, they clearly state to grease the ball bearings that are about here inside the body, and to also grease the guides that the ball bearings roll on. But no, they state no grease whatsoever on any of the parts on top.
And specifically the jaw and hood area. Remember
Exactly. No oil or grease. Exactly. Okay, but look what we see. Right away, look at all that grease we see right here. And that shouldn't be so the manufacturer is putting more grease than we think. Okay, well, so that's interesting.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Well, maybe that's what that little code name FF stood for. Financial friction.
Or what I like to call it, the value-added friction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so that's interesting. Okay, let's continue taking it apart. Here, actually, let me pull this out. Okay, let me put this aside. Okay, just I want to show you all the ball bearings in the body right there.
Tilt that back up. Right there. You got it. All the way around. See, there's their 25 ball bearings in their size proportion to the chuck.
See, and the only thing that's keeping those retained on the guide right there is just the grease. So they're all loose. So they'll easily fall out if I turn this upside down. Okay. Okay, and just again, I just want to keep reminding, okay, the only place we should have seen grease is in the balls and on the guides. The bottom guide, obviously, which is, below the ball bearings. If I take this, and then grease, let's see, it would be, that's right. So the grease would be riding right here. So based on their instruction, that's the only place we should see grease or oil for that matter. Everything else should be dry. Okay, so already what I'm seeing is, okay, so we're seeing plenty of grease. I would have expected, let me just take a quick look. Okay, they did, in regards to the grease on the ball bearings and the guides, it does appear that they added a little bit more grease than I did. So that's something I can definitely improve. I was pretty conservative on the grease.
That's great news.
Yeah. And it looks like, they really put a lot. They probably at least 2 to 3 times more grease than I did. So that's a problem I can identify really quick. Okay, but the other thing I noticed is there's grease on the shaft. Okay, and this is the shaft that rides, in the cylinder right here. Okay, so and that would also, just added grease there alone would add some resistance. Okay, but look, in addition to that, there's grease. There's even grease up here. There's grease up there, like I showed you earlier. Okay, so there's already grease all over the place. Okay, let me remove the jaws. These jaws aren't numbered, by the way, in case you're curious. So when you remove these, you don't have to pay attention. The order can be anything. Oops. Okay, let me just take a look again. Okay. Yeah, again, I'm seeing grease. Okay, this is the slots for the jaws right in, and I'm seeing grease all over the place.
Yeah, can you pull that forward closer to the camera for me, Pat? I do see that grease through the lens. Right there. Yeah, we shouldn't see anything there at all, not whatsoever.
Right. See, I'm really surprised. Reading the instructions, and you know what? I'll add a link to this video in the description. I'll add a link to the instructions from Albrecht so you guys can read it too. And I'm really surprised. They clearly state in their own instructions no grease or oil. So I'm really surprised. Okay, let's continue. Okay, let's take a look at the jaws. Yeah, even the jaws, look at that. The jaws are all full of lubricant. Could be grease. It's really oily. So I'm not sure if it's a combination of oil and grease. But can you see that? That helps if...
Got it. I got it in there. It's pretty close. I got it. There it goes. You got the shine a little bit there.
Yeah, but you can definitely tell it's not dry. It's oily and greasy. Okay, let's take a... Okay, and this is... Okay, when you turn the chuck when it's built... Okay, let me just give you a picture of how this works. Okay, so the jaws are riding in this screw. Okay, so when you turn this is a left-handed screw. So when you're turning this, remember the hood's in here. So when you turn this, the screw's moving up, which is then forcing the jaws through this tapered hood. And obviously, when it goes up, it's forcing these to close in. See? So this moves back and forth on this channel. Okay? Just kind of give you a picture of how this functions. Okay, and one of the things they also say in their instructions is this left-handed thread right here is to not be greased or oiled whatsoever. And again, let me take a look. It's definitely a lot of oil. Yeah, in this case, I don't see, it doesn't look like grease. It looks like just oil.
But isn't it true? It's not supposed to have either.
Right. According to the instructions, they're saying no oil or grease. So this is really surprising. I'm glad I opened this in front of you guys because I don't think anybody would believe me. This is a brand new chuck, so we know nobody's opened this since the factory assembled this. So this is really surprising. I'm shocked. No wonder why my chuck feels all loose.
It feels cheap.
Yeah, it doesn't feel value added. So that really opens up. That gives me a lot of thought. A lot of things to think about. Definitely though, just from observing this chuck, I'm definitely have inadequate amount of grease and oil. Because remember, I didn't even add oil. I just added grease like the instructions said. They're really strict. Just grease on the ball bearings and the ball bearing guides, and that is it. So this is really a shocker. I'm really surprised. Let's see. I think that's about it. It's obvious. There's no other components. Let me just look it over real quick. There's really nothing else to show. Yeah, see, this is the other side where the ball bearings run on. And you would expect grease to be there as well, but you wouldn't expect grease to be on this shaft right here. And that would definitely help with the resistance. Okay, so that's good to know. So what I'm gonna do, to close this thing up, I'm gonna analyze this a little bit more off camera. And basically, I'm just going to make some decisions based on what I see and apply what I think should be applied to, the amount of grease and oil that should be applied to the one I rebuilt. To a certain extent, I got to think about it. But I definitely can see, I was too weak on the grease. So definitely on the ball bearings and the guides, I got to add more grease. And I think I'm going to add grease on definitely on the shaft. That'll definitely help. And then I may just oil some of the top components. So these are just some initial thoughts. So let me do that, and I'll be back with the results. Okay, but before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the function of the Albrecht chuck. One of the things the company claims is when you tighten the chuck does not loosen. I mean, that's a big thing. It's a keyless chuck. You don't have to tighten it really hard. And I think some of the claims you hear about is, once it's tightened, and once you start using it, the more torque you apply in the drill, the tighter it gets. And that makes a lot of sense. That's why they use a left-handed screw, obviously. They're counting on the fact that, so the jaws are riding on this screw. And as you're putting in more torque, let's see, this is turning. I have to think about that. But obviously, as it turns and as it applies more torque, oh yeah, no, that would be right. See? So as you apply more torque, the screw opens up, which is causing the jaws to move down the hood, which is then causing it to close. So that makes a lot of sense. So the more torque you're applying to the chuck, the tighter it gets onto the drill bit or the tap, as we're using it for. Okay, but one of the I wanted to talk about what allows a chuck to grip. It's keyless. It moves. One of the things when you fill an Albrecht chuck for the first time, one of the things you notice is it's a very it's highly precision machined, and it's very smooth, really nice. So when you tighten on a drill bit, what causes it to grip and stay tight on that drill bit? Okay, well, I researched that a little bit, and my conclusion was two things, just based on what I've read. Okay, the first thing is that's one of the reasons why the manufacturer only wants you to apply grease on the ball bearings. That's why I'm kind of shocked on our findings here, because the reason why the manufacturer doesn't want all the top components greased and oiled is because they want friction. They want a little bit of friction in these moving parts. If there's no friction, as soon as you tighten on the drill bit, as soon as you start drilling, it's just going to untighten. So they want that friction. Okay, so that's why that's their justification for not oiling or greasing the top parts. But I want to address a question that one of our viewers had. I think it's Peter from Ed's Precision.
Oh yeah, good old Peter and that ever so small Mazak do-all machine he has there. The kind of machine you can go inside of.
Oh my God, that is a huge machine.
It does everything. I think it does everything. It even does the processing and finishing painting on them parts. Sorry, Peter.
Now that is a really impressive machine. Okay, but the question Peter had was, he said he probably has a larger chuck model, not as small as ours, but he says he has an older Albrecht chuck. Isn't that right, Lance?
In a box in his garage, and he's thinking about revisiting it. If maybe you had some thoughts on what you think we should do with it, or he should do with it, rather.
Right, because didn't he write that it doesn't retain a tight grip on the drill bit?
Yeah, a high-speed steel shank. He's tightening it on. It just doesn't hold. There's two very hardened steels going together there. And so I guess he was trying to look into why it won't hold its grip.
Okay, and is that on the jaw side holding the drill bit, or is that?
It was the jaw side, yeah.
Oh, okay, just wanted to clarify. Okay,
yeah,
I just want to be sure.
Kind of a cutter he put in that chuck. See,
I understand completely. Okay, yeah, I did look into that too, and I think it's one of the notes I may have looked at last week. But what happens is. Okay, I was talking about how, you don't want oil or grease the top components because, it does depend on that friction. Okay, well, where it depends on friction as well is on, let me clean this up real quick just so we can get a better look. Since it's so greasy, okay, I'm not sure how good of a picture.
That's really nice right there, actually.
Right there?
Let me get in there. Yeah, I can see that finish in there. I can see the lines.
Okay, if you see that, that's a ground finish. Okay, and when you fill that, you can feel, it's hard to describe, but you can feel a little roughness. It's not smooth. It's not a polished surface. Okay, and what people are saying is that little roughness that you feel inside, that's what adds a little friction between that and on these jaws. So when these jaws are, they're riding on the inside of this, that friction and that roughness allows it to bite and stick. Okay, but what happens is over time, as you're using this all the time, the jaws are moving back and forth. The inside starts getting shiny. It basically starts polishing itself, and so what happens is it gets so smooth and polished, it starts moving really smooth, so it loses its bite. So what they say to do is, they say just take a little piece of sandpaper. They say a 320 grit. And just take it and just apply it and just turn the hood, in a circle like this, because you basically want to rough it up and you want your sanding lines to go around the chuck. So that's why you just want a little piece, like a strip with your finger, and just rotate the hood. And that's enough. You just want to do it until, if you see any shiny spots or anything, you want to be sure anything that's shiny or polished looking, you want that to be gone. It should be like a matte finish, like you see in this one. Okay, and they say once you do that, they'll definitely allow it to bite again, so it doesn't automatically, loosen by itself. So if I was in Peter's shoes, what I would do is I would take the drill chuck completely apart, like we did. I would clean it completely in acetone, because you want it clean. You don't want any grease, oil, grime, left on the chuck. You want it completely oilless. Okay, and then you just want to, like I did, it's a really easy thing to put together, as you can see, not many parts. And you just want to just build it back up, and I'll obviously I'm going to share my findings when I come back on my chuck. And based on my findings, I'd recommend, try copying what I did, if I'm happy with the fill. And I think if you do that and also use a little sandpaper on the inside of your chuck, I think that'll get your bite back and it won't loosen.
Can I just ask a question about the jaws? They should just really inspect those, right? And they have choices and things.
Good
right?
point. I'm sorry. Yeah, definitely inspect all your parts. You want to be, use a loop. Peter should have a loop, I imagine. And just make sure you want to just check the condition of all the parts. Make sure, especially where the side that grips the drill bit. Make sure it's in really good condition. That's the other thing. That could cause issues with it gripping on the on the drill bit. That's a good point. And just to note, all these parts you see here, you can buy these as replacement parts at many places. I know that MSC, they're a tool distributor. They definitely carry all these parts. You can buy the ball bearings. If you happen to lose a ball bearing, don't worry about it. They sell the ball bearings a package of 25. And that's actually, I think I said it last week, every model of Albrecht keyless chuck has 25 ball bearings. Obviously, they're different sizes based on the size of the chuck. And that's good to know because that's how they sell them. They sell them in groups of 25. So if you lose one, don't worry about it. You can buy, you could just toss the rest of them and you can just buy a package of 25 And I can't remember the price, but it's not that expensive. And the jaws too, you can buy the jaws as a set of 3. So you buy them in little groups. And then I even saw these parts you can buy separately. So definitely,
they're worth rebuilding. That's why, just to reiterate, these are really, really to us, they're really expensive chucks.
Yeah, these are these chucks. These are like $400 plus chucks.
Oh yeah, they go up to the 800s. I've seen.
Yeah,
them. So,
they're really expensive.
They're worth every penny to fix, and they're quite fixable. Is what Patrick's trying to
definitely, and definitely, get a loop. And really look at the condition of the parts, especially if it's an older chuck like ours. Go over every single part and make sure there's no burrs. If there's some burrs, you can probably get a little file and file off any burrs if the condition everywhere else is still good. You just don't want any burrs. But if there is wear, it's good to know you can replace any of the parts really easily. But no, thank you, Lance. I almost forgot about that. I think that's it.
Okay, well, we'll see you again when you're done putting these back together and see if we can add some of that financial friction.
I hope so.
Fine.
Okay, bye.
Okay, we're out to see Patrick. He's in a blue coat, so that means we have some really good news now. We have great news to share with you. Hey, Patrick.
Hello, guys. Yes, we have wonderful news. Obviously, I have some really good news about our older Albrecht chuck. Okay, what I did was, off camera, this is the brand new chuck. I still have it taken apart. And what I did was, I studied it, a little bit more. I wanted to really be sure I understood how and where they greased all the parts. And then basically what I learned there, I applied it to our old chuck. And I actually had Lance clean this up completely. So I was able to start from the beginning. I greased it all up just like the brand new one. And now it works. It has nice friction. It's smooth. It feels exactly like a brand new Albrecht chuck out of the box. Not even it's not close. It's perfect. I couldn't be happier. So I'm really happy and ecstatic. So basically, because it came out so good, I want to share with you guys how I oiled this. But obviously this one's done, so what I had Lance do last night was I had him take the brand new chuck, the parts, since it was already disassembled. I had it clean all the parts with acetone. He gave it back to me, so that's why I have all the parts here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grease this in front of you and assemble it, and I'm gonna do it exactly like how I did it to my older Albrecht chuck. Because I really want to share this. It was definitely the way to go. I got the perfect fill. So perfect. I wish we had fill vision, because I wish you guys could feel the before and after.
Because it's super smooth.
Because it is really a night and day difference. It's just unbelievable. So, okay, but one of the things I wanted to share first was, when I was first looking at, this is the part, this is the main body. Okay, let me get a pointer. Okay, this is the main body, and this is where the 25 ball bearings sit around this groove. Okay, and when I was studying this, before we cleaned it up, the ball bearings and the grease was still in here. I was studying how they laid the grease in there, and the grease was laid just so perfectly. The ball bearings was all around, the grease was just perfect, almost like they put a bead of grease all the way around. And even on the other part, this is the guide right here that sits on the bearings. Even the grease, the distribution of the grease was just perfect. So I was just thinking, how am I going to accomplish that, especially it's so small? And then I remembered, I use these syringes. And this turned out to be the best solution, the perfect solution. And what this is the main syringe. This is the same type of syringe you would see at your doctor's office. You get your flu shot or whatnot for your injections. But what's different is the needle part is what you call a blunt tip needle. And as you can see, there's no sharpness to it because it's not made for injecting. It's made for dispensing. Like dispensing, we're doing dispensing grease or dispensing oils, any type of liquid. It's used in laboratories, because laboratories are dispensing liquids in their vials, things like that where you don't have to inject. And they're perfectly safe because they aren't sharp at all. Okay, and I really think this is so critical to adequately lubricate your Albrecht chuck. I just can't see myself doing it any other way. Okay, but people that are watching this and want to rebuild their Albrecht chuck, or actually any chuck for that matter, I think you absolutely need to have this. But the problem is like when I buy these syringes and even the tips, I buy them in big boxes over here. These are, I think, boxes of 100s. And actually, I purchased two sizes. I purchased, the one I'm using now is a 1 milliliter. And then I also buy a bigger one, a 10 milliliter, like if I need, like, I guess I imagine if you're doing a larger Albrecht chuck, for example, or something that requires more grease or something, you'd want to use a larger one, of course, because a 1 milliliter doesn't really hold much, but it was plenty for my little chuck. Okay, and I haven't seen these sold separately, but they're cheap enough where I just buy the boxes, and because I have a lifetime supply, well, Lance and I talked about it, and if somebody wants to rebuild their chuck, we're gonna offer to send you maybe one of the small ones, one of the large ones, and even a couple of the tips.
The ones we would use based on any size Albrecht chuck. One for the large chucks, one for the smaller chucks.
Yeah, I just want to show you. These come in different sizes too. I just grab a few sizes. Let's see if Lance can get it. See if you notice, there's different sizes like this one.
They're completely safe. They're 100% harmless. They're fine.
Yeah, they're harmless. See, even the smallest one, you can't, there's no sharpness to it. And because we're using it for grease, I would send you one each of the larger ones, these two right here. And I'm actually using the second to the largest one. I think it's I can't remember. It's either I think it's a 15 gauge, and the biggest one's a 12 gauge. And these are like 24 and 28. So these are too small. But I just wanted to show you the different sizes available. So yeah, so basically, if you need the supplies, we'll send them to you for free.
Yeah.
All we ask that you do is send us the funds for the shipping costs. So, and we'll tell you, if you're interested, send us an email. I'll put our email address will be in the description, and which is info@activeatom.com. And just write us an email, saying, hey, what, I would love to have, a couple of those syringes and some of the, the needle tips. And just give us your shipping address. We'll look it up, confirm the shipping charge. We'll email you back, our cost to ship it to you. Just PayPal us those funds, and we'll ship this stuff right out to you. We're just doing it we just want to be helpful. Because we know how it is, we'd hate for you to have to buy a whole box of these, so just wanted to mention that. Okay, so let's see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, before I start, okay, so I am gonna lubricate this brand new chuck. I'm gonna do the entire assembly for you guys. So I'm gonna lubricate everything, assemble it, and it should feel exactly like the old one if I did everything correct. Okay, but before I get to that, I just wanted to mention, one of the things I mentioned in the prior video was if your chuck isn't holding its grip well, you want to check the condition of the inside surface of the hood. Okay, and just again, it's because it's the jaws that ride up against the hood, inside of the hood. And if it's too smooth, especially if it's an older chuck, when you start using it, it starts wearing and starts getting polished and shiny. It won't hold the grip anymore. So you need that friction. Okay, and just as a reminder, you just take a little piece of 320 grit sandpaper, And just put it on your finger, and you want that finish to be horizontal around the hood, just like that. Okay, but what I forgot to mention is on each of the jaws, okay, on the outside surface, not the surface that grips the drill bit, but the outside surface that rides on the inside of the hood, you also want to get that sandpaper, and you want to go up and down vertically, you know, because that's the natural. If you look at the net, like this is the brand new jaw, it has that surface finish going vertically. So we want to replicate that. So just, just make sure it's not shiny. So you want to roughen it up a little bit with the sanding paper. And then those two things should give you that nice grip or that bite that we're looking for, so it doesn't loosen, when you're using it. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Let me see, I think that's it. Okay, so I've already got my syringe. I got it filled with grease, and I'm still using the grease we prefer, Magnalube-G, and we've used this for many years, and we highly recommend it. If you aren't sure what grease to use, this is what I used on our old chuck, and it feels great. So if you don't have a grease, or aren't confident in the grease you currently have, definitely recommend this. And you can actually get this from McMaster-Carr. I know they carry it, or you can go to magnalube.com and you can buy it on their online store, I believe. So it's a couple of places.
Yeah, I went there. Can I make some kind of statement?
Oh, sure.
Okay, I went there. That little tube is on the picture frame in the front. It's funny. It comes all the way up into 55-gallon drums. So there's
right,
in the front of the picture, in front of the big drums and the big buckets and the big barrels and all those things, is this itty-bitty little tiny tube, which is the tube we have.
Right.
It's just proportionally funny to see that in their front page of their website.
And price-wise, it's roughly about $5. So not expensive at all. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Okay, the first thing you want to do is we want to lay down a bead of grease, on that guide or ledge where we're going to drop the bearings on. Okay, that's the bearing race that the bearings ride on. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And after I do this, I'll have Lance get a close-up so you can see it. Okay, so that's done. Let's see if Lance can get a good shot of that. Let me know if...
I think I got that right there. Got it.
Got it? Okay.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
See how there's a bead all the way around. Okay, the next step, this is where you got to be really careful. You want to get a good pair of tweezers. And here, actually, this would be easier. Let me just drop these on the paper towel. Okay, then what I'm going to do is, these aren't greased or oiled or anything. These are dry, but it's fine because I'm putting, you'll see. So dry, I'm going to lay them, I'm just dropping them on the race inside. Okay, and be sure the body is really close to the towel because sometimes they'll jump the guide and drop. So let's just be aware of that. Okay, they're all in. I was just making sure they're all seated into the grease. Okay, because what I did was, we laid that bead of grease around the ledge. Now I dropped really carefully the ball bearings, and I just want to be sure they're pushed down a little bit. Because what we want to do now is we now want to go back with the syringe. I'm going to go around the bearings on the top now. See, I want to be sure there's plenty of grease. And I'll show a oh, here, let me show how it looks now.
Very nice.
Okay, see that?
Yeah, 25.
Yeah, 25 ball bearings. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, let me just grab another paper towel. Okay, occasionally you just have to wipe the needle. Because as you let off the pressure, sometimes a little grease will continue to come out. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so just want to be sure it's clean. Okay, let me show you what I did. See, if you notice, I just laid a bead of grease on top of the bearings and made sure it really got in between the bearings as well.
And now they look a little foggy.
Yeah. Got that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's done. Okay. And don't worry about putting too much grease. You'll notice when you look inside, you notice a channel that the bearings sit on. So there's a ledge, and then you'll notice the ledge, it goes up pretty high. So if you put a lot of grease, it's not like the grease is, when the other part, see, when this comes down and sits on top of the bearings, it's not like if you put too much grease, it's gonna push all the grease somewhere or not seat at all. What happens is that channel is very high, so the grease, what will happen is like any excess grease will just go above this and just fill that whole channel, which is fine. It's not gonna, go into any other areas. So just want to be sure I mentioned that. Okay, so now let's go to this part. What we want to do here, I'm sorry, be sure you get the right side. Okay, looking at this. Okay, so this is the piece that goes in next. Okay, this is the main, I forget the name of this, but this is where the taper is. This is where you mount it to your little drill press or whatever you're mounting it to. Okay, so that gets inserted first, and the top, that's where the left-handed thread is, where this gets inserted. And this is what pushes the jaws up and down, okay? So on the bottom side, that's the leads that the bearings ride on. So what we're going to do is, on here, we're going to put a bead of grease around there. Okay, you got that? Good. Okay. Okay, here. Okay, so this gets inserted into there. Okay, this wall rides on the inside wall right there. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on the top. Okay, and then with my finger, I just want a coating of grease all around. Now make sure we don't interfere with our bead we just applied.
What's nice is that syringe lets you keep your hands clean.
Yeah, it does.
And get grease going everywhere.
And it's very precise, if you notice. You don't waste any grease at all.
Okay, we had to stop for just a brief moment there, and we are back with Patrick. Here we go.
Okay, where I left off was, okay, I had just placed the bead of grease around the circumference where the bearings rest on right here, the guides, the bearing guide right here. Okay, and then the last thing I did was I put a coat of grease on this surface. And I just want to make a comment on that, was in one of the documents I was reading, a guy made a good point. He recommended, and I agree, to put a coat of grease on this cylinder, because this is the cylinder okay, that we insert into here so the cylinder rides within, the body. And his reasoning for greasing it or being a good idea is, see, this is the taper that mounts into the spindle, like like our tapping machine, for example, or your drill press. And what's nice about that, with the grease is, over time, the oil, dirt, grime, little tiny chips, are likely to get in the space, between the body and the cylinder. And if that happens, it's very easy for that dirt and grime to just ride down where the bearings are. And with the grease, the thought is the grease will hold any of that, dirt and stuff. So, and I thought that was a good, good reason to grease it as well. Okay, so the next step is, now that we did that, we're ready to drop this into the body. Okay, and we just want to be really careful because the bearings, remember, the bearings are loose. Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do is just wipe the grease on the bottom right here. Okay, and this is a good time to give it a test, and see, right now I can tell, yeah, it definitely has the right amount of grease, just right in it, just these parts together. It feels really nice. It feels quality, like you'd expect. So this is perfect. Okay, so we're done with this for now. Okay, we'll lay this on the side. Yeah, be sure to lay this on the side, because if you lay it like this, the weight of the body will bring up the cylinder like that, see? Okay, so we want to keep those ball bearings in there. Okay, the next step is, okay, this is a left-handed thread. Okay, and this goes in, and this is what rides up and down when you turn the chuck. And this is what, moves the jaws up and down, and what forces them to close and open. Okay, and one of the things that are in the instructions from Albrecht is they say not to oil or grease this. But the thing is when I took this apart, oh, that's a note I think I forgot to mention. Okay, in the last video, when I initially took this apart and, I was investigating and looking at my loop, seeing all the parts they had greased. And I thought they had oiled some of the parts. What turned out off camera, when I looked into it in more detail, it was definitely grease. It was just a really thin layer of grease, but it was definitely grease. So they've greased the whole thing, no oil. That I can confirm. Okay, and one of the things, so I thought they had oiled this left-handed screw. Well, it wasn't that. It was actually really light coat of grease. So what I did with my older chuck, I'm just going to copy what they did, is I'm just going to put a bead right down the threads. Actually, let me get my loop just so I can see. Okay, so just like that. Got once?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now you want to screw it in about halfway, not all the way to the bottom, about halfway, just like that. Okay. Okay, again, put on its side. Okay, now this part's next. This is where the little jaws get inserted into these slots. Okay, and what we want to do first is we want to put a light coat of grease on each of these 3 fingers. And that's a note I want to make. One of the things I noticed that was identical in this brand new chuck and the old chuck that I took apart, and I can't explain why they did it, but on only one of the fingers, there's a big like lump of grease, but not on the other. The other fingers just had the light coat of oil. So I'm not sure, and it was identical on both chucks. Just a big blob of grease. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. I haven't, I just don't know why they did that. I think just a light coat of grease on all 3 fingers is sufficient. So that's what I'm gonna do now. Okay. Okay, and as you're applying the grease, it's okay if some of the grease goes into the slot. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Okay. Let's make sure the top's clean. Okay, now we're ready to drop this in. Okay. One of the things, you'll see a little dowel pin on this. Let's see if you can get a good view of it.
Got it.
Okay, and that dowel pin goes in this little slot of the body right there.
And got it.
Great. Okay, just so make sure you line it up and it goes right in there. Okay, perfect. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to line up the grooves of that screw with these slots of this part. So let me do that now.
I'm just calling that the Chuck jaw cage. Is that a good name?
Yeah, it's like a cage. Yeah, that's a good name for it. Okay, so so the slots in the screw are now lined up with the slots of the cage. Okay. Now what I do is I don't grease the jaws. What I do is I just put a little grease, make sure there's a little bit of grease on the side walls of these slots, just a little bit. And I use the needle just to smear, to smear the grease on the walls, but a really light coat. We don't want much. And again, I'm doing this because this is how it was when I took it apart. So that's how they did it from the factory. So I'm just copying it. Okay. Oops. Okay, now we just take each jaw. Okay, make sure we put it in correctly. Actually, I think I need my loop for this. There we go. Okay, now we can set this like this, I think. Okay, the last step now is we just want to apply a light coat of grease on the inside of the hood, where they ground it right there, because that's where each jaw rides on right there. So I just put a little blob of grease. You don't need much. And now I just use my pinky and just a really light coat.
A pinky in this case because it's one of the smaller models.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You probably use your thumb on most of them, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we don't want much grease. That's how it was when I took it apart. So I'm just trying to remember, I'm just trying to duplicate what they did. Okay, so that's good. And that, I think, let me just go over it. Oops, just see this dropped a little bit. Okay, we're fine. Okay, now we're ready to assemble it. Oh, that's the other thing. The only place where I put a little bit of oil, this is Nye oil. It's just a mineral-based oil. And what I do, I just put a little bit on the threads. Okay, and I do that just because, you know, this is going to be closed up for probably many years. So, you know, the next person, if it's us or whoever else opens this up to do a rebuild, you know, we don't want the threads to get corroded or whatnot, because it's going to be really difficult to open. Okay, and we just screw it on. And the hood is right-handed thread, so it's just normal righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Okay, just like that. Okay, and after this video, I am going to take it to the vise and, you know, put this in the 5C collet block, and I will tighten this collar down a little bit. Okay, you don't have to go crazy, you know, just really snug, just, you know, so it's on there good. Okay, but I can test it. You know, let's see how it feels. Oh yeah, feels like it should, just like, feels like a brand new chuck.
Nice smooth friction. Is that what you're feeling like?
Yeah, what I'm feeling is it's super smooth. You know, you could tell it's precision. You know, there's precision parts in there. You could definitely tell it's smooth, but there's that friction. You know, the friction from the grease. It just feels good, nice. Just feels quality, and it feels this. See, this is the brand new one, and see now again, it feels exactly the same as prior to when I opened it. So so another chuck feels, you know, that we did a successful job. But you know, the real test, you know, although it feels perfect, you know, obviously the real test is going to be, you know, how it functions, you know, and we'll, you know, obviously, you know, we're going to use ours on our tapping machine, and we're going to rebuild some other chucks we have, because we use these same Albrecht chucks on our turret and our drill press. So we use them around. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lubricate them the same way, and then over time we're going to use them. And so we're definitely going to share, you know, the results. Maybe, you know, we'll come back after a few months and, you know, share with you guys, you know, if we had any issues, if we had any gripping issues and so forth.
I guess we should call today's shoot how to correctly rebuild or refurbish or reassemble an Albrecht chuck.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and then these, okay, last thing I need to do is just put the collar on. Okay, what I do, I have to be right back. I forgot a tool. Okay, I'm back. Okay, what I use a large flathead screwdriver. Okay, and what I do is I just put it in here. Just apply pressure. Make sure, is that good? Okay, yeah, looks good. That's about, basically what I do is I try to center it, you know, between the end of the shaft right here and then to the wall of the body. Okay. Put a little oil on the screw. No, I don't have my little screwdriver here. Okay, but this is it. I'll have to screw it later. But we're done, and it feels great. And I think we're ready to go into the workshop, and I think I'm gonna install our old chuck on our tapping machine. And before I show you the use of the tapping machine, Lance is gonna have a little discussion on the taps and dies we use. So that's gonna be really interesting.
Uh-oh.
So we'll see you in the workshop.
Okay, bye, Patrick.
Bye. Okay, we're in the workshop now, and Lance is going to teach us some tap info.
Okay, hi. Hi, guys. Welcome. Okay, you're familiar with the tap and a die, and, the tap handle and the die handle that goes with this. And this is a 4 millimeter, a 3 millimeter, and a 7 millimeter, just as an example of sizes you'd be more familiar with than what I'm about ready to do here, which is lift my hand and open my case and just expose you to a world of, utter really tiny stuff. Okay, let me see if I can get through all this for you here. And what I'm going to do is, I just want you to realize what you're seeing in front of you here. These are the threads right here. This is a 0.5 millimeter tap, and that's her mating die. So that's amazing. And that die, actually, if I can may, that die actually sits in here. And this is basically our die handle, where you have the kind with the big poles. I call them those big poles. I've seen some giant ones there and there. Okay, and this is how we hold the taps this is for doing manual tapping now. Just as an example, this is mainly about size. This is the taps.
The pin vise.
Pin vise, thank you. And that's just how it works to hold that little tap to help us out. Am I getting that good, Patrick? There?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So that's fine. This is the manual application, and when we do 1, 2, 3 screws, what have you, we'll do the manual operation. We're not going to set these things up, because here's what happens in the turret of the Levin lathe. These are two different styles that basically serve the same function for us. These are non-auto release. They go into the turret, and these are the tap holders for the turret. And what happens is we have to turn the machine. We have to go forward and then reverse. That's just the way it works. Is that correct, Patrick?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so they're really neat. They're really small as you think they are. And so, am I missing anything here, Patrick?
Yeah, maybe just to mention, people that are familiar with these these tapping.
Sure.
This is a size 0, the smallest acorn die they make, and this is they refer to it as a EJ5 geometric, and this is the smallest they make. And like Lance was saying, this one's non-releasing, and it's the only size that's non-releasing. All the other sizes above it release. Yeah,
that's what Patrick was sharing. As it goes up the ladder in size, it works just fine with auto release, but not this one.
Yeah, so we have to reverse. We have to reverse the spindle, and that's why we have that fancy motor drive, so that because it can get pretty tedious on a regular basis.
Yeah, the one with the big buttons we showed you guys, and I showed you how I do my forward and reverse.
Yes.
And then that's now more of the reason you clearly understand why the location of the Levins was really critical to us. You can see the way we have to be so manual in the turning off and the forwards and the reverses and stuff like that. That's all. I just want to give you a little bit of a lesson here.
Yeah, and when we use the machinery, we have to get really close, to the part. Exactly. So we have to be really comfortable, with how we're sitting and all that. Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you. We just want to give you a little update. Pat's coming up next with, you're not going to believe it, Patrick's going to tap some holes, and he's going to throw in a little surprise at the end of that tapping, and I hope I can capture it on film, because we are just going large here. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lance.
Okay, it is Patrick's turn at the fine tapping machine. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, guys. Yes, we're going to demonstrate the tapping machine finally. Okay, really quickly,
in order to demonstrate this properly, and we would usually have the spindle cover on in the front, but I'm going to leave it off because I want you guys to see the pulleys in action. Okay, so that's going to stay off. Okay, the other thing really quick, we did get our little switch block in. This is a really nice switch. You turn it on, you know, it's like a little miniature you're familiar with, like on your lathe or mill, and then it lights up when it's on. So that's pretty neat. The thing is the reason why we didn't install it is because we made a last minute decision. We were going to install this on the base like we told you guys, but instead we decided to order a longer aluminum back plate, and we're going to install it right underneath the VFD. So, but we didn't want to delay this because you guys don't have to see this. And we didn't want to delay this any further anyway. We promised you guys that we would demonstrate this, a working tapping machine, in this video. So I had to hook it up temporarily. So, and it's fully functional. Everything's working great. So let me go ahead and turn it on. Okay, flange shows, okay, the spindle's running right now, and right now I have a 1 millimeter tap. We figured any smaller and we probably couldn't focus on it. So, and just so you know, the capacity, I was actually incorrect in a prior video. I was thinking about the larger model that we're thinking about purchasing in the future. Which is 1 millimeter to 5 millimeter, I believe. Okay, our little tapping machine, this one can do as small as a 0.5 millimeter up to 2 millimeter. Okay, but I didn't want to do a 2 millimeter. I chose a 1 millimeter, kind of happy middle. And then I also earlier today I made a little test plate. And I just drilled a lot of holes so I can play with it. I think I tapped 3 or 4 holes. Just to make sure it's functional. And I think we're ready to go. Are you ready, Lance?
Oh, yep. Gotcha real well. Take your time.
Okay, great. And there we go. I'll do another one. See what's nice? See, I can control because it has a clutch system, so I can go down a little bit, stop, you know, retract it, go down, go up. See, it's really nice. I have full control. Did you see that, Lance?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just. Hey, you know what? Why don't I do tap a third hole, and why don't you focus on the pulleys?
Got it.
Okay. Oh, let me explain real quick what to look for. Okay, right now the spindle's being pulled up from the spring mechanism right here. So actually the top clutch, the cone clutch, is engaged right now, turning counterclockwise. Okay. When I pull this down, you can see it stays engaged. But as soon as the tap hits the work and pushes the spindle up, it disengages the top pulley and engages the bottom, which is running clockwise. And then that's where it then starts tapping the hole. And all I have to do is just lift up a little, you know, because it's just a regular clutch mechanism. I just lift it up a little, and I can actually control the speed a little bit, you know, go slow, fast, or even, you know, you saw me where I stopped it completely, and I can move up. So you have full control with this clutch system. Works really great. Okay, so let me make sure I get this really good. See that, Lance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Do you want me to do another one, or is that good?
I think we got it.
Great. Want to see how about if I put a screw in one of these holes?
Oh yeah, let's you know, I want to make sure we don't just think he's just threading air here. You know what I'm saying? You know, this really does work. sounds so much better than it used to sound, by the way.
Oh yes, notice how quiet it is?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so this is the screw. See if you can get that.
Oh my, hold on.
Okay, remember this is a 1mm screw.
Okay. Best you're gonna get there.
Okay, let me see if I can. Let me go around. I'll do it on the first hole I tap. See, this was the last one I tapped. Still messy. There we go.
You know what? Put your finger right on it. Right next to it there.
Oh, here.
I'm not able to get it.
Remember, don't get too close to it.
Yeah, no, okay.
I can zoom in the software if you get a good. Did you get a good clear picture?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, so we're finally done, and we're finally done with the tapping machine. We're gonna call the tapping machine complete because we don't have to show you the switch. You'll just see us using it when we're working on our parts in our project. And I think the next thing is, I think this next week we are gonna have an update on the micro drill press. If you remember our little German green micro drill press, the last item was the drawbar. Well, we have the solution, and we're gonna show it to you next week. And if everything goes smoothly, we're going to show you the micro drill press in operation, and then that'll be done. So yeah, so it's kind of nice. We're finally getting all our little projects done, and then we can finally work on our product. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Sure.
Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And if you leave us one of those comments, maybe we have something we can answer. We will never leave a question unanswered. Thank you.